One day, my son asked me, "Dad, will you play with me?" And I said, "Later." I didn't know what that word would cost me. It wasn't the first time Leo would come to me with something in his hands. "Dad, look," he would say. I would look at the screen. "I'll look later," I'd say. Another day, another later, another day, another later. And at some point, he stopped asking. In that moment, it wasn't the first time. I didn't realize something had changed. But years later, I understood what it meant. Turns out, later is a very dangerous word. Let me tell you a story. When Leo was born, I made a promise to myself. I was going to work hard for him, for a better life. I thought I was being a good father, but I didn't realize what it was costing me. I was working, learning, trying to build something. Late at night, the house was quiet. Olivia was asleep. Leo was asleep. And I was working. I kept telling myself, this is for my family. This is for Leo. This is for our future. But that sentence can hide a lot. Fatigue, absence, guilt. Sometimes Leo would sit next to me on the same couch, but I was somewhere else, in the screen, in the work, in my thoughts. I was there, but I wasn't really there. Sometimes he would just ask, "Can we play for 5 minutes?" And I would say, "Not now, later." Sometimes he would wait, a little longer, then a little longer, but even waiting has an ending. One day I looked at Leo. He wasn't a baby anymore. Then I blinked, and he wasn't even a little kid anymore. Something had changed, but I hadn't noticed it, because in those moments I was busy with something else. That's when I understood something. Life doesn't move slowly. Life moves quietly. There are no alarms, no announcements, no dramatic music, just ordinary days. And those days become your life. When Leo was little, he wanted to play with me. I said later. Years later, I wanted to play with him. And he said later. But this time, I was the one waiting. And this time, that word felt heavier, like a boomerang. It had come back. That day, I learned something painful. Later is a very dangerous word. For years, I treated time like a patient employee, as if it would wait for me, but it didn't. I told Warren how I felt, that I was trying to build a better life, but it felt like I was missing it at the same time. He told me something I never forgot. Most people think they work for money, but in reality, they sell their time. Money can be earned back. Time cannot. And in that moment, I understood. I wasn't just working. I was giving away my time, and in return, I was postponing my life. Everyone was saying the same thing, later, when I'm ready, when I earn more. But no one was saying this. Life is happening now. On an ordinary Tuesday, in an ordinary week. And before you realize it, years pass. One day I thought, I'm not managing my time. Time is managing me. When I was younger, I thought money was everything. Then I thought it was security. Now I know. Time is the most important thing. The goal is not to stop working. The goal is to stop selling all of your time. Because one day, you look around and realize the moments you thought would wait for you didn't. And sometimes You don't understand that immediately. Sometimes life teaches you quietly, through one ordinary night, one missed moment, one empty chair. Let me tell you about one of those moments. I wish I had made that mistake only once, but the truth is, I repeated the same mistake at different times in my life, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in quiet ways, and sometimes in ways I still remember very clearly. One day, I got so consumed by work that I missed my son's school night. At first, it didn't seem like a big thing, just a small school event, a few children, a few parents, a small stage, nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing. At least, that's what I told myself back then. But for Leo, it was a big night. For almost 2 weeks he talked about it. He talked about the rehearsals. He talked about his line. He talked about what he was going to wear. He talked about it during breakfast, while putting on his shoes, while sitting next to me on the couch. Sometimes he would stand near my desk holding a piece of paper in his hands. "Dad, listen to this part," he would say. And I would answer, "Just 1 second." Then my phone would vibrate. An email would arrive, a message, a deadline, something that felt important in that moment. And by the time I looked back at him, the excitement on his face had already become quieter, and I acted like I was listening. But my eyes were always on a screen, on my phone, on my emails, on work. I was home, but mentally, I was still somewhere else. And I think that is a very strange kind of absence, because your body is in the room, but your attention isn't. One evening, he walked into my room wearing his little shirt. He had tucked it badly into his pants. His hair was messy. He looked like a tiny businessman. I smiled a little, not loudly, just enough for him to notice. And when he noticed, he smiled too. "I'm going to wear this," he said. "You look great," I said. Then he asked me, "You're coming, right?" And I answered too quickly, "Of course I'm coming." The kind of promises busy people make. Promises made without thinking about their weight. He smiled immediately after I said it, like the question had never even needed to exist, like he had never doubted me. That part stayed with me later, the trust in his voice. The school night arrived. Olivia reminded me in the morning. She texted me again at noon. And that evening, Leo came to me one more time and said, "Don't be late." "I won't," I said. "Promise?" he asked. "Promise," I said. That word should have stopped me. It should have made me close the laptop. It should have made me stand up immediately. But it didn't. I kept telling myself the same thing. I'll finish one more thing and leave. But one more thing can sometimes take your whole evening. That's how these moments disappear, not through one terrible decision, but through thousands of tiny delays. Olivia and Leo left first. I told them I would come after them. The door closed. The house became quiet, and I went back to work. At first, I still felt calm. I thought I had enough time. I had a plan in my head. Finish the work, close the laptop, drive to the school, sit next to Olivia, watch Leo, smile, clap, be there. In my mind, I was already there. But life does not reward intentions. It responds to actions. Time kept moving. One problem came up, then another one, then a phone call, then an email. I kept saying, "Almost done," but I wasn't almost done. I was almost late. Suddenly I looked at the clock. I was running late. That moment always feels physical first. The small shock in your chest, the heat in your face, the The realization that time moved forward without asking for your permission. I grabbed my key and rushed outside. Traffic was heavy. Every red light felt like it was waiting for me, and I kept blaming the traffic. But deep down, I knew the truth. The problem wasn't the traffic. The problem was I didn't leave when Leo told me not to be late. By the time I arrived at the school, the event had already started. I heard applause from the hallway, and in that moment, I realized I had already missed something. That sound stayed with me for years because applause is supposed to sound joyful. But when you hear it from outside the room, after arriving too late, it sounds different. It sounds like a door closing. I walked into the auditorium. Parents were watching the stage. Children stood there in little costumes. Some parents were smiling proudly. Some were recording videos with their phones. Some were whispering to each other. Then I saw Olivia and the empty chair beside her. My chair. That empty chair hurt more than any argument could have, because nobody needed to say anything. The chair itself said enough. I sat down next to her and quietly asked, did I miss his part? She stayed silent for a few seconds. Then she simply said, yes. One word, but it was enough. Leo was already standing at the back of the stage. I had missed his line. The moment he had been trying to tell me about for days, I had missed it. I saw him looking around the room for a second, and even though I arrived late, part of me still wondered how long he had looked toward the door before giving up. After the show ended, Leo walked toward us. He was holding a little paper star in his hand. When he saw me, his face changed. It was a very small change, but big enough for a father to never forget. It wasn't dramatic. Nobody else in the room would have noticed it, but I did. Children don't always show disappointment loudly. Sometimes it appears quietly, for just a second, then disappears again. I leaned down and said, I'm sorry, buddy, I missed your line. He looked at the floor, then he simply said, it's okay. Some children don't know how to say they are hurt, so they say, it's okay. And somehow, those two words can hurt more than anger. Part of me wanted him to complain. I wanted him to say, but you promised, because then at least we could have talked about it openly. But he didn't. He just held his little paper star quietly. That night, the car ride home was quiet. Leo was holding his star in the back seat. Olivia was looking out the window. I tried to start small conversations. How was it? Did you get nervous? Was the crowd big? But his answers were short, and every short answer somehow made the silence heavier. When we got home, Olivia only said one thing to me. He kept looking at the door. That sentence stayed with me, because while he was on that stage, he wasn't looking at the audience. He was looking at the door, waiting for me, and I wasn't there. That night I went into his room. He wasn't asleep. I sat at the edge of his bed and quietly said, I'm sorry. Without turning toward me, he said the same thing again. It's okay, Dad. And in that moment, I realized something. Children can forgive you very quickly, but some moments still stay inside them. That night, I sat alone in the living room. I didn't open the laptop. I didn't go back to work. I just sat there thinking. The house was completely quiet. No notifications, no emails, no meetings, just silence and guilt. I thought about the sentence I had told myself for years. I'm doing this for my family. And I wondered, how many times that sentence had pulled me away from them, because sometimes, while you are trying to build a future for your family, you slowly disappear from their present. I don't know how Leo remembers that night, because I never had the courage to ask him, but I asked myself many times, "How do you remember that night, Michael?" And my answer was always the same, with regret, because some moments do not leave your life dramatically, they leave quietly, and years later, you still remember the empty chair. I wanted to share this with you because sometimes people make their burden a little lighter by talking about it, and maybe you won't make the same mistakes I made as a parent, because at the end of the day, children don't remember how hard you worked, but they remember whether you were there. So, if someone you love is standing at the door right now, asking for just a little bit of your attention, be careful before saying, "Later," because moments do not wait forever. Children don't either. Money comes back, time doesn't. Spend both carefully.